dormant at all times. Madam Speaker, we should also invest in more affordable and reliable public transport systems, because over-dependence on private transport, it is a burden to workers and traders. Madam Speaker, as a solution to Kenyans who are suffering more, this House should support policies that encourage local production. Madam Speaker, we should have renewable energy, and also, very Mheshimiwa majority said, we should have renewable alternative energy sources where we have strategic natural reserves that will give us a long-term solution. And
your time is up. I had already given direction, Honorable Member. Let us utilize 5 minutes so that all of you get to speak. Honorable Member for Magarini.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipatia nafasi hii nikaweze kuchangia mswada huu. Naunga mkono na kwamba ni hakika Wakenya wanahangaika. Lakini pamoja na kwamba hakika Wakenya wanahangaika, haijatupa nafasi sisi tukiwa viongozi kwamba tukaweze kutumia wakati huu kufanya siasa. Ni rahisi siasa ya kupinga. Ni rahisi siasa ya kubomoa kuliko ya kujenga. Ninavyofahamu ni kwamba kuna kila jitihada inayofanywa ili kuona kwamba bei ya mafuta imepungua, ili kila mmoja akaweze kufurahia. Lakini si kweli kwamba tutoke hapo na badala ya kuwaambia Wakenya ukweli, tuende tukawahadae, kwa sababu neno la uongo ni tamu kuliko ukweli. Mheshimiwa Spika, ninafahamu ya kwamba serikali na hususa Rais yuko na mipango ya kuona ya kwamba mafuta wakati mchache ujao tutakuwa tumerudisha ule mtambo wa Changamwe. Hata kama hautajengwa Changamwe, utajengwa mahali pengine popote pale, iwe ndani ya nchi ama nje ya nchi, lakini ni mtambo ambao tutakuwa tunautawala, na ni mtambo ambao utapunguza moja kwa moja bei ya mafuta na kila mmoja atafurahia. But tunahitaji, samahani Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini tunahitaji subra. Subra ndiyo itatuletea yale mema yote ambayo tunayatarajia katika nchi hii. Lakini matamshi yetu ya hapa na pale, iwe ni matangani, iwe ni katika mikutano yetu, hiyo haitatusaidia kujenga nchi, bali itatusaidia kuibomoa nchi. Nikikumbuka vizuri 2005, ndugu yangu bahati mbaya leo hayuko hapa, ningesema hivyo hivyo atakiwa hapa. Kuna wakati mmoja alisema, ndugu yangu Kaluma alisema, hii nchi lazima watu watangane ndio heshima ipatikane. 2007, 2008 hayo yalitokea. Heshima ilipatikana. Ni madhara ndiyo yalipatikana katika nchi hii. Hivyo basi ni wajibu wetu tukiwa viongozi tuone kwamba matamshi yetu yawe ni ya kujenga nchi. Naunga mkono pia wazo la kwamba tukaweze kuwa na hazina, tukaweze kuwa na mapipa ama matangi ambayo yatakuwa ni ya kuhifadhi mafuta kwa siku za usoni. Hiyo itaweza kutusaidia, lakini tusijilinganishe na nchi jirani, kwa sababu ukora wanaofanya kwa mafuta yao ya kupunguza bei ya mafuta, sisi tukitumia gari zetu zitaharibika. Kuna hayo makampuni ambayo huchanganya hayo mafuta ili kurudisha bei kuja chini, na hiyo itatuharibia magari. Kwa hayo machache, Mheshimiwa Spika, asante.
Asante sana. Mheshimiwa Bernard Kitur, mbunge wa Milima Nandi.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to also contribute on this very important conversation, and to appreciate also the Speaker for allowing that we have this opportunity. I know Kenyans were expectant that today, when we are opening up, when resuming up the recess, this is a serious conversation that we needed to have. And I want to thank you for giving us this chance. First of all, I want to thank the government for taking the initial conversation immediately on February 28th, when we had this challenge of, the problems that happened in the Gulf, and the prices spiked, and immediately the government, of course, with this great house, reduced the VAT from 16% to 8%, which obviously really assisted. And besides that, there was the utilization of the Petroleum Development Levy Fund of about 6.2 billion. And that was an immediate measure that was done. None of us expected that this was going to take quite a long time of having the war continue. But nonetheless, we've had conversations as a country, we've had conversations as leaders of various industries, the matatu industry, transport industry, and I want to thank all those Kenyans who came up for. I want to thank the leaders also in the executive who participated in this discussion. Now, Honorable Speaker, I want to encourage, and I, of course, appreciate President William Ruto, that part of the things that is proposed is that we go to have electric vehicles in our country. And for the first 100,000 vehicles, they have a window that they can be able to import some of this with, reduced levies, which I think Kenyans must now use that opportunity, and also moving us into appreciating the e-space, the space that then electric vehicle space. And I want to also encourage that we also still give more, support that we can have the local manufacturing around that space. Of course, someone had also suggested that let's also have the bus rapid transport system that then will carry most of us, and we reduce the utilization of too much fuel within. Also, the concerns that I think is global and real is that when you look at countries like the US and the Europe, they really have a huge power in terms of keeping this enough reserves. In our country, we have about 20 days. Other countries do have 90 days. And in my view, I think we need to encourage also the private players that they need to have a greater power, as one of the laws, to be able to encourage all of us to be able to have enough fuel in our country. The conversation has continued in this House, Honorable Madam Speaker, and I'm really surprised also. I've had some politicians out there mention that the fuel that come to our country don't go through Strait of Hormuz. I want to teach them, because these days it's easy. You can access all this information online. We have 3 contractors under the G2G agreement: the Saudi Aramco, which we all know, the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, and the Emirates National Oil Company. Madam Speaker, when you check out, it's a fact that 96% of the oil, of the fuel from Saudi Aramco go through the Strait of Hormuz, which now definitely they have to get other channels which are more expensive to be able to have that fuel, landing here in Mombasa. Secondly, is Abu Dhabi has over 50% of their fuel also going through the same. The Emirates NOC have 96% of the liquefied natural fuel, as well as the crude fuel is 55%. So it tells you clearly that all this fuel go through Strait of Hormuz. And therefore, when there is a blockade, they have to create other ways of how to get this fuel in Mombasa. Therefore, the landing cost has gone way up. And I would be expecting that then leaders who will be speaking going into the future must be honest to Kenyans. You don't speak as it suits you. There are also facts that must be backed up on what we're talking about. Finally, I want to encourage the creation of a refinery, whether we bring in the various countries around here regionally or within Kenya, so that we be processing the crude oil, which then will be a bit cheaper here, and also look at the available places that we can be able to get oil within our country, so that then we can be able to reduce the cost of fuel. But generally, I want to appreciate the initiatives the government has been able to take so that we have fuel in our country that is affordable, and encourage also Kenyans that let's use all the other things that we are, the means that we are able to use that would reduce the utilization of oil or the costly fuel in our country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well, Honorable KJ. Honorable KJ is from Dagoretti.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yeah,
And
so
I would
Dagoretti
also,
South.
This is Dagoretti South, the great Dagoretti South constituency. And Honorable Speaker, allow me to start by just commending the members of Parliament for adjourning very serious business to discuss this very serious matter of national interest, because this is a matter that can only get solutions in the House that makes budget and in the House that is also involved in proposing taxes for this country, Madam Speaker. And as we approach this debate, Madam Speaker, my first plea would be for us as members of Parliament to be true to the mantra that calls us to the wisdom that he who comes to equity must come to equity with clean hands. In the sense that, Madam Speaker, that we as the House, is that we are the ones who are responsible for the taxes that Kenyans are faced with. We are the ones responsible even for the prices, informed by the decisions that we debate in this House as we make our budget, and no less people like even my very good friend from my alma mater, the Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, who he himself served as a member and the chairperson of the budget committee at a time when some of the issues that we are debating today were coming to place, Madam Speaker, informing this House, Madam Speaker, and reminding ourselves that even some of the issues that speak to the cost of fuel, up to and including the RMLF, were considered and passed in his time as the chairperson of the budget committee, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, this speaks to the honesty that we must have as members of this House.
Honorable Ndindi Nyoro. What is out of order?
I would never have wanted to interrupt Honorable KJ, but he mentioned my name adversely. And Honorable KJ has been in this parliament now going to 10 years. I think he knows better that the laws around taxation, RMLF, VAT, and no others are not the domain of the budget committee. Please, Honorable KJ, take time to read the standing orders, orient yourself, and I hope you can become a better member of parliament.
Honorable Speaker, I do say this speaking to the principle of collective responsibility, that it was in the time when Honorable Ndindi Nyoro was a chairperson of budget that the RMLF came into place. And Madam Speaker, at that time, he was almost mute about this matter. So he might not have found his new voice at this time when we are debating this issue of fuel costs in this country, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, that is not what I did rise up to speak about. My point was that he who comes to equity must come to equity with clean hands, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is a time when this House must make decisions. And some of these decisions are informed by matters that go beyond the boundaries of this country, Madam Speaker. The issues that are happening internationally, up to and including the wars that are happening around the world, and even the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, do speak to the cost and prices that are happening today. But Madam Speaker, this House has to be sensitive to the members of the public in this republic, and even more so, operators who are directly affected by the rise of the cost of fuel, who are our constituents, Madam Speaker, and our business is to debate solutions, Madam Speaker, as it is informed by our mantra that we serve for the welfare of society and the just government of the people. Madam Speaker, it has to also be noted that we are at the time of budgeting. It is budgeting season for this House. That some of the reliefs that we seek, Madam Speaker, we have to say that they are considered in this budget that is coming up, Madam Speaker. And I dare say, even ahead of time, that there shall be resolutions that shall be passed by this House as we are debating this budget and passing it, that will also speak to the matters that we are considering today. Madam Speaker, it must also be noted as we are debating this issue that we are not at liberty as Kenya to compare ourselves even with our neighbors, Madam Speaker, because the situation that is affecting the world is being felt across the globe. And even as we talk about fuel prices in our neighboring countries, we must be reminded that in places where the prices are fewer, the fuel is not available, Madam Speaker. And I'm reminded of an expose that was done by the journalist called Alex Chamwada, where he was showing us as Kenyans that even that Ethiopia that we compare ourselves to itself might be having lower fuel prices, but does not have the fuel to sell, Madam Speaker. And it must be a commendation to the government that there was foresight in the arrangements that availed fuel at a time of crisis, as we are speaking today, that Kenyans, unlike our neighbors, are not queuing to get fuel, Madam Speaker, and that the last time Kenyans were queuing for fuel is at a time of the last government where prices were so high and even the remedies that were put were very punitive to Kenyans. Madam Speaker, the solutions must be found in this House, and we must start walking in the direction of those solutions. Madam Speaker, we know that fuel just came about as petrol came about as fuel not more than 100 years ago. And before that, there was coal, Madam Speaker. And as we speak today, the world must start walking in a direction where we are talking about green energy, Madam Speaker. And I must commend people like Moses Nderito, he himself an industrialist and a very forward-thinking Kenyan, even with some of the things that we are seeing in innovation, up to and including the electric buses that we are seeing. But Madam Speaker, it would be unfair for me to conclude without calling upon the financial institutions and banking sector to look into this matter as a Kenyan situation that needs reprieve, even from the banks, Madam Speaker. That at a time of COVID, we saw banks moving towards cushioning Kenyans against some of the costs, Madam Speaker. And if there's a time that Kenya must call our banking sector to patriotism, that time is now, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to thank you for this opportunity and call upon Kenyans to also consider the forward thinking as we even put.
Your time is up. Member for Embakasi West.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, right from the get-go, I want to thank the Speaker and the team that has brought this issue of fuel. Honorable Speaker, this is a very emotive issue. And even today, Honorable Speaker, when I was in one of my WhatsApp groups, I wrote that today we are reporting back to work as members of Parliament coming back from recession. And everyone who was tagging me in that same WhatsApp group was, can you discuss fuel together with other issues? Honorable Speaker, we're talking about a war that has affected fuel prices globally. And Honorable Speaker, this issue is not new because when the Ukraine war started, fuel prices were still an issue. Honorable Speaker, it's good to note the Ukraine war has now gone on longer than the Second World War.
We now have an Iran war. We don't know how long this war is going to go for. So that is something that we must bear in mind. Honorable Speaker, having learned from that, we must now anticipate what might happen, because now we know that war affects fuel prices. Palestine is a risk. We have Iraq, we have Venezuela, we have Cuba. All these countries, there is a risk that there could be a further war, maybe with the US or one of the partners of the US. So that is a risk that we must put in mind. Honorable Speaker, we must remember that tariffs are always affecting fuel prices. Sanctions that every day are always issued now and then. The economic trends, the global economic trends, scarcity as well, and that could be an issue in the future, because we do know that oil fields in various countries, Dubai and other areas, we've seen them drying up. Honorable Speaker, the US dollar, how the rate goes up and down. We're not stranger to what happened in 2022, where the US dollar affected us. Honorable Speaker, disease. You know, we shut down the country just about 6 years ago because of COVID. We must accept there's an Ebola crisis just across the border. Honorable Speaker, there's still hantavirus, which had marooned a number of foreign citizens somewhere, and they're still being treated, and who knows what could happen. So these issues, Honorable Speaker, we must be alive to them, that they will always be there. And once we accept that they will always be there, then it moves us to the next step. Honorable Speaker, we look at, right now, we have a G2G deal. And Honorable Speaker, I'll submit to you that this deal was more built on supply rather than looking at price. So at the very beginning, it looked like a very good deal. But having even listened to even some of the people who've contributed, is that we can see that there is a problem with this G2G deal. And if it cannot respond to the issue of price, then it is a bad deal. And we must consider getting rid of it. And Robert Speaker, I want to put a practical example. We know that there are a number of people who are heading EPRA, KPC. They tried. They realized there was a problem with the G2G deal, and they tried to find a way to get cheaper fuel into the country. And lo and behold, unfortunately, these people lost their jobs or were fired, and innocent people like Joe Sang who lost their jobs. I didn't want to go into that direction. But those people who went to incite this situation to have some of those people fired, we've come to realize they had interests. And Honorable Speaker, I'm not afraid to say, the chair of KPC, Faith, we now know they had interests. And that's why they didn't want to see anybody who was trying to go outside this G2G deal. So, Honorable Speaker, the systemic shocks will always be there. And Honorable Speaker, we must think 12 months from now, Honorable Speaker. I'd propose, when it comes to RMLF, that we retain the same, because we lost a lot, Honorable Speaker, and the 290 constituencies rely on this. Let us look at the matatu prices. Let us talk to the landlords to ensure that there's a freeze on our rent. Let us do food subsidies. Let us do kazi mtaani to protect these people. KPLC, let them start looking at nuclear and coal energy. And Honorable Speaker, finally, I think it is time we consider a fuel subsidy bond or an infrastructure bond that we can float out there for a certain amount, whether it's 12%, so the government can collect a bit of money. In exchange of reducing RMLF, let us use that fund to subsidize the cost of fuel for...
Very well. Member for Busia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to start by cautioning Honorable Ndindi Nyoro. He is not the sole holder or sole owner of the franchise of truth in Kenya. He sat on a committee that he witnessed unfair allocation of resources and said nothing, misled Kenyans. This global crisis, we must all accept that it is not Kenya that did that. When bigger people, giants up there, who produce also this oil. Start fighting. This disruption will, of course, come to us and harm everybody, whether you have or you have nothing. I was seated with my friends who own motorbikes in Busia. And they were talking while I took notes. They said, fine, the government has reduced some taxes and reduced diesel prices, but our motorbikes, ma'am, they don't use diesel. We use petrol. I noted. Other women in the villages said, we still use lamps, kerosene, paraffin. That too, go and represent us. Why were they telling me, yet they know very well, that I am in broad-based government? Because they do not want this issue to be politicized, to be taken the direction my friend Ndindi Nyoro is taking. Let us not mislead Kenyans just because
What
they
is
will
out of
see
order?
us as fairer.
You have mentioned member for Kearu. Let us hear. It's not information. He's on a point of order.
Honorable Speaker, again, I would never have wanted to interrupt the member for Busia, but she has clearly put it that she sat down with the border riders in Busia, and they were requesting her to do something about the fuel prices. They were not talking to you as a roadside talk. It is for you to do something about it. And that is what precisely I have done. And that is why even Parliament has allocated me time to appear before the relevant committees from tomorrow with the concrete ideas on how to lower fuel prices. If indeed you mean well for for our brothers, the border riders.
What is out of order?
What is out of order is for the member to keep on misinforming the House about my proposals, which I enumerated before, concrete, objective, and she wants now to politicize very objective proposals on helping the same border riders.
You have made your point. Honorable Omanyo, this is a house of debate.
Yes, and I'm
You are
debating
also
very
free
nicely,
to make
Madam Speaker.
proposals without castigating other proposals.
Madam Speaker, I went back to how he misled us when he was the chair of budget committee. And I realized he's the one who put us in this trouble. So I was trying to remind him that he was also part of the problem. When facing this crisis today, it has come a long way, so we can tag him along the problems. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can I now finish? I know this scarcity has cost...
Member for Kearu.
Honorable Speaker, and I think it's clear for Kenyans to see why to be a Secretary General, you actually need to qualify to be one. And I would want to request the Honorable I would want to ask the member for Busia to put it in black and white on the things he's talking about when I was the chairman of budget. I have laid a proposal bare. It is upon her to take time to either support or oppose.
Honorable Ndindi Nyoro. Honorable Ndindi Nyoro. Honorable members, we agreed we will debate in decorum. I will also caution Honorable Ndindi not to castigate, to cast aspersions to Honorable Manyo. But Honorable Manyo, you have 5 minutes. Okay. You can choose to keep referring to Honorable Ndindi Nyoro's proposals, yes, or put forward yours in your submissions.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Because it's also good to have reference. Then you now give solutions. Thank you, Madam Speaker. He was my reference. I agree that actually the pinch has gotten everybody, whether you have or you have not. And I'm thinking ahead. As we solve, because the government has reduced a few things here and there, we will still feel the pinch because it is not coming to end soon. The way I keep reading news, we have people who I don't know what they gain in wars. Whatever they gain, that's their problem. But as Kenyans, I think in future, we should not focus on buying these machines that depend on petrol and diesel because we don't produce these things. We are under the mercy of the producers. So if any Kenyan will think of buying cars in futures, electrical, motorbikes, the same, then we change from using even paraffin and kerosene, which is also not very healthy for all of us. We go to other things that the producers and manufacturers of those products, when they decide to not even supply Kenya, then we are still okay with our choices. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well. Member for Marakwet West.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for granting me an opportunity to speak on this very, very important subject. Honorable Speaker, certainly the issue of increase in the price of fuel is an emotive issue in this country. Honorable Speaker, I sincerely empathize with Kenyans who have to bear the brunt of the high cost of living that has been brought about by the high cost of fuel prices. Honorable Speaker, as Parliament, we have an obligation to defend the interests of our people. And for that, Honorable Speaker, we must sit down as a House and look at concrete measures that we must take into account so that we shoulder Kenyans from this high cost of fuel prices. Because, Honorable Speaker, either way, with the increase of fuel prices, it will affect all sectors of our economy. Honorable Speaker, from the onset, I must appreciate the fact that the G2G agreement, this country, Honorable Speaker, has assisted us as a country. I have watched news in countries like Burundi, Ethiopia, where there is massive, there is short supply of fuel in that country. Honorable Speaker, in as much as we want to criticize this G2G agreement, Honorable Speaker, I support the fact and appreciate the fact that there has been a constant supply in Kenya of fuel, courtesy of the G2G agreement, which provided for 180 a day credit terms. Honorable Speaker, also that G2G agreement, Honorable Speaker, has eliminated the need for monthly spot purchases, and that is why you see the issue. We have a consistent supply of fuel in this country. But, Honorable Speaker, this government has focused on production subsidy rather than consumption subsidy. Honorable Speaker, I have heard many members here comparing the prices in Kenya with Tanzania. Honorable Speaker, Tanzania has heavily subsidized fuel prices. And of course, that has a way of affecting the economy of the country. Honorable Speaker, in terms of consumption subsidy, for example, in fertilizer, when we subsidized fertilizer from 7,000 shillings to 2,500 shillings, Honorable Speaker, you've seen increased production in our farms. Honorable Speaker, as a House I've said, Honorable Speaker, we must also be able to regulate oil marketers' profit margins. If the high profit margins of the oil marketers is making the palm prices go up, then, Honorable Speaker, we must find a way to regulate the oil marketers' profit margins so that at the end of the day, the consumers benefit. Honorable Speaker, I also agree with my colleagues here that we must diversify our sources of supply and route so that we do not complain about the Strait of Hormuz each and every time. So we not only look at a specific source of supply, we must be able to diversify as a country so that we get more oil sources. Honorable Speaker, having said that, last week or 2 weeks ago, we saw there were protests that were called by certain people on the issue of fuel prices. Honorable Speaker, it is unfortunate that some few individuals took advantage of those peaceful protests to engage in acts that violated our constitution. Honorable Speaker, we saw muggings in the streets. We saw vehicles being burned. We saw property being damaged. Honorable Speaker, I wish to remind our people, our Kenyans, that we have one country that we must protect. Honorable Speaker, Article 37 of our Constitution talks about protests or picketing that is peaceful and people should not be armed. So, Honorable Speaker, in as much as we have challenges with the issue of fuel prices, with the economy, Honorable Speaker, we must engage in a civil manner and in a manner that protects the greater interests of our country. So, Honorable Speaker, as a leader, I support a means that will lower fuel prices in this country. As a legislator, I'll be progressive in, in engaging.
Your time is up, Nabi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when a country goes through difficulties, as the one we are going through, my expectation is that we close ranks. There's no fuel price for opposition. There is no fuel price for those in government. There is no fuel for a poor man, and there's no fuel for a rich man. Honorable Speaker, I'm taken aback that instead of us closing ranks and looking for a viable solution for our people, we have emotionalized the debate. Honorable Speaker, we had COVID in this country. We closed ranks and we sat down from both sides and agreed on the way forward. There have been very concrete proposals put on the floor here from either side. And as a country that wants to resolve an issue, we should pick those concrete proposals and put them into action. Because at the end of the day, people want reprieve. The economy wants reprieve. If oil prices continue to escalate, this economy will collapse. Fact. Honorable Speaker, these are my proposals. I agree entirely with a proposal put forward by Honorable Ndindi that we need to share the profits. We reduce the profits of the marketers. That would give us some reprieve. Honorable Speaker, I also want to propose that we look at an aspect of G2G and renegotiate, not only to look at the issue of supply, we must look at the issue of price so that both variables are put into the agreement. It will give us some reprieve. Thirdly, Honorable Speaker, at this point in the country, it is my proposal that we look for a middle way to provide a subsidy for a period of time, 6 months, as we monitor the global politics. On the other hand, Honorable Speaker, what are we doing in the long term in terms of our oil exploration in Turkana? Honorable Speaker, what are we doing with all the coal in Kitui? Honorable Speaker, it is the right time to look for resources and ensure that we have our own refinery and we go into exploring our oil in Turkana Fourthly, Honorable Speaker, it is important that we also diversify our sources of fuel. We have countries that we could source fuel from without using the Arab fleet, which has to use the Strait of Hormuz. Honorable Speaker, I want to plead with my colleagues that the situation we are in now, we cannot call each other names. We need to reason together. We need to look for solutions together. We should not bastardize government, but we need to sit down as members of parliament and agree that this is the direction we want to go. But at least give our people reprieve, give the economy some spike. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Member for Mogotio.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a very timely and discussion and motion, Madam Speaker, because the moment we are in requires that we all come together, devoid of our political affiliation. And we need to have this discussion soberly without looking at which formation you come from and which part of the formation you come from, Madam Speaker. As a nation, we are not an oil-producing nation. We are oil takers nation, Madam Speaker. And the prices being set, global prices being set, Madam Speaker, does not only affect us, but it also affects our economy, Madam Speaker. So as a nation, we need to start looking into our future, that what do we do to get away from this, because we are slaves of fossil oil from other countries. We have to look at, as we look for short-term discussions, such as the discussion and the ideas that members are putting across here, Madam Speaker, we need to think on how to be independent in future and how to be able to